Welcome, everybody, and welcome to week 4 of the spirituality leadership. This is our last week. The conversation doesn't end here. As I promised, I do have some surprises for you guys at the end. Just to kind of cover the journey that we were on. So, week 1, we spent a lot of time talking about the spirituality of leadership and how we all leaders are leading from within outwardly. We kind of delved into this aspect of the spirit, soul, and body that we lead from the inward part outwardly, and it manifests itself into the things that we are actually doing, helping, supporting individuals. And then week 2, we explored how these things impact our lives, the people that we are entrusting to lead. Throughout this process, the ultimate goal is to understand that all of these elements impact your life, your family, your business, your colleagues, individuals who are connected to you in any form, shape, or way, that we lead these individuals from within. One of the big catchphrases or the big line that I said every week, and I'm going to say it again this week, is we all of us lead from both our gifts and talents, but we also lead from the broken places. These are the areas of our lives where we're not as strong. And these are the areas of our life that we're really struggling. We spent some good time in week 2 talking about and using the example of how um, rejection and low self-esteem in a leader can be toxic and chaotic, and how leading from those places can impact those you are leading. Throughout this journey, my ultimate goal, or the ultimate goal, is to make that transition for you as leaders, regardless of what that looks like in your own individual life, is to begin the hard work in dealing with the broken places in your life so you're able to lead more effectively. Last week, we spent a good portion of time having a conversation about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, which you're hearing a lot now in politics. I gave you an assignment, and that assignment was good or bad, right or wrong, that in the United States, we saw what was called the transition of leadership or the transformation of power. And that was a perfect example of what happens when there is a change in leadership. Good, bad, right or wrong, no judgment at all. That is not what this is about. But I said for your homework assignment, watch what changes would occur and maybe conversations, people's attitudes, just on the systematic transformation of leadership. And the reason why I use that as an example is because we must understand that leadership is spiritual. It is not just policies, procedures, and law. There is an inward work, or there are things that we cannot see that impact how a leader leads and the influence of the behind the scene work in the manifestation of that leader. The same thing happens on your job. There is a reason why when your company says, hey, we're going to have a change in leadership, or Johnny is going to resign and he's going to be transitioning to other things, and you're going to have a new manager, or you feel inwardly that there is a shift happening. If you think about it, the policies and procedures of your job doesn't change. It doesn't mean that when they hire a new manager, they're going to, at that moment when they walk in the door, they're going to say, hey, here's a new policy manual. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. Just that person occupying a position of leadership directly impacts you. And it goes from impacting you to you impacting the low individuals around you. impacting your family. There has never been a change in leadership that did not have an impact on my life, good or bad, my relationships, good or bad, or my family. If you worked for a boss that was a little toxic, did it not affect stress, how you process things, and having to be more cognizant about keeping a work life balance just on the change in leadership or the indication that there could be a change in leadership? Why do you feel that way? It's not just because of a person. It's because that as soon as a person has some level of authority, it impacts you. Why? Because they themselves, just like you, are leading from within, right? And then we kind of talked about how character is important and how integrity is important and how all these little elements are the things that we should look for in a leader, not necessarily policies and what they say, but the inward work that we can gauge of whether or not this individual has a sense of character, integrity about themselves. What we have to be very careful of is the things that we don't see or the broken places that this person has. And like I said before, this is not a judgment. All of us have these areas of our lives where we are works in progress. That was a good opportunity for us to look and see what happens and the impact that it has on changing leadership to the nations, to people's personalities, how people are thinking about things differently. And then furthermore, how does it impact us or how does it impact you and me and how does it impact our family? So we talked about that in week 3. And so now we're in week 4. We're going to put it all together. We're going to spend a good portion of time covering what I consider to be, well, not what I consider to be, what it is, emotional intelligence, and how emotional intelligence is kind of the key that brings it all together. It's one of the things that, if anything that you do on your journey in leadership, it's something that we need to really carefully take a look at. Emotional intelligence. So if you've been in corporations or you're working and you have a job, they've been using this catchphrase for several years. This person doesn't have a lot of emotional intelligence. They need to work on their emotional intelligence. This week, we're going to spend our last week kind of having a conversation about emotional intelligence and it is important and why we as leaders and in our families, in our houses, in our homes, in our corporations, and our businesses need to develop a sense of emotional intelligence. So, this is what emotional intelligence is. For those who are not aware, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. It plays a critical role in building strong relationships, making thoughtful decisions, and leading effectively. It was developed by Daniel Goleman, who popularized the concept of individuals having emotional intelligence. Let me tell you a story. It resonates on the element of emotional intelligence and the journey to start developing emotional intelligence. All of us are on different levels of strengths or weaknesses in our ability in this area of emotional intelligence. I tend to be very strong, but I am still very much a work in progress, especially when it comes to things and people who are important to me. So I'm gonna tell you the story, and this story kind of resonates with this. Any one of you who have teenagers, especially in high school, there is this window in which teenagers are making that transition from being the little cute kid and mommy and daddy kind of concept to these awkward, very much um, all over the place adults. And it starts from the ninth grade through high school and the first couple of years of college. But I can remember having a conversation somewhere in between our daughter's junior year in high school. And, there have been weeks where there was this level of not communicating or not talking, not disrespectful but kind of like, I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to do what you tell me to do, but not having meaningful, intense conversations. And in the middle of that conversation, and one day I just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit our daughter down and have this conversation. And in the midst of that conversation, my daughter stopped me and said, "You don't listen to me. And it's hard for me to talk to you." And I was like, oh, whoa. And I come to find out it's true. It was something that I have spent time working on being an active listener and easy to have a conversation with. Let me explain how this plays out in emotional intelligence. I'm a type of person where I think about a lot of things. One of the things, especially for men, I'm learning as a man growing up, my job is always designed to fix things. From the time that I get up in the morning time to everything I do in work, my things are always about fixing problems, answering questions, getting things done. I have a checklist of things that needs to get done. One of the things that I found over a period of time is that I'm not listening to people. I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm processing already the answer that I'm going to give you. I'm looking at you, nodding my head and doing all the things they tell you to do in leadership training classes. Yeah, give them eye contact, nod their head. But at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily listening. I'm actually going through my file folders of solutions to give that person as an answer. I'm not really listening. I'm just giving them attention long enough for me to spit out the answer that I had. And when my daughter said that, I said, wow, maybe that's something I need to deal with. The whole process of emotional intelligence, it's that process of building a stronger relationship. The more that I have worked at it and getting out of manager mode or director mode or executive mode, the more that I have learned that process of stepping out of that mode, we're not talking about titles, we're talking about the functionalities. The more that I've gotten out of always operating in that mode, I'm able to do a better role in developing strong relationships and able to make thoughtful decisions and leading more effectively. So the first thing in when we have a conversation about self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts, behavior, the interactions. So we have spent 3 weeks putting you on this journey to be more reflective of the inwardly versus the outwardly. I know leadership sounds, I just want to lead, but what emotional intelligence tells us is that if you recognize your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts, behavior, the interactions, you're able to lead more efficiently and effectively. See, I spend more time understanding me so that I can better understand you. If I know my triggers, my thoughts, my behaviors, and how I interact with certain things, then I must be if I am true to myself, if I'm going through the process of evaluating and being self-awareness of who I am, then I'm able to make clear decisions. Places I go, conversations that I have, places I don't go, conversations that I don't have, things I do not say, processes and procedures of how do I handle issues, circumstances, and situations in a way that is reflective of who I want to present. If you are a person that every situation in your life, if it's bad, you only have one mode of response. You only have one trigger and you shoot the same bullet every single time. A difficult situation, you spaz out. Difficult situation, you curl up. Different situation, you want to quit and give up and give in. The more that you are self-aware of the triggers or the things that you do when you are in situations like that, you're able to make better decisions. If there's situations where you shouldn't be as aggressive, but you all because you are not self-aware and you already approach everything the exact same way. I've been in a situation I learned years ago. There was a situation that occurred and it was a trigger for me. It was a trigger. And I went to a place that I never thought I would go. And there was repercussions for it. When I think about it years later, over the years later, I realized that there was a part of how I needed to handle that situation completely different. Okay. And I'm gonna throw the other concept out there. It's kind of like getting into the zone. You hear it oftentimes about athletes getting into the zone. Like that's when you hear individuals like Kobe or whatever, when he scores this absurd number of points in the game and they say that he was in the zone. It's like learning how to put yourself and being self-awareness, learn will hopefully guide you to the place where you're playing the game, but you're so much in the zone above the game that the game is being dictated by you, not the game dictating you. That you are more proactive than active in the game. And they call it the zone. It's basically a set of this idea where your mind, body is all aligned in a flow state where it's almost like you become unstoppable. How do you get yourself in a situation when you know that through emotional intelligence, you're able to put yourself in a situation where you can regulate circumstances better? Is it taking a deep breath? Is it relaxing? Is it closing your eyes? Um, Believe it or not, every time I feel that I'm about to get in front of people, present, I have a little routine. It helps me to center my mind, the things that I feel in my heart that I need to share, everything that's inside of me, so that I'm able to get more into the flow. I can tell when I'm nervous or when I didn't prepare myself because it becomes very difficult for me to get into a flow state or in the zone, being very present. The ultimate goal with self awareness is understanding yourself and how to you better put yourself in a situation that you can help regulate your own personal emotions better. For an example, my daughter saying to me, "You don't listen to me, and it's hard to talk to." For certain persons who are not really good at self regulating their emotions and their feelings, oh, you just being disrespectful. Oh, you don't understand. And then you would have went on a whole nother train of you being disrespectful. Who pays for this house? Who put the clothes on your back? Who put the food on your table? Yes, absolutely. But you're not listening. Why is it difficult for her to feel that she can't talk to me or that I'm not listening? Because if I can't regulate my emotions, I could have took that as being emotional, especially that day I had worked crazy hours and overnight, and I'm doing it for her and for the family. But I had to step out of myself, listen, and be actively in tune to that. So how do you do that? So the first thing about self-awareness, second part of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. What that means, the ability to control or redirect your emotions, particularly in a challenging situation, and to maintain composure and thoughtfulness. Being aware of your triggers, where I go, what I say, what triggered me, not triggered me. Then how do you self-regulate that? That's the second part of emotional. How do you self-regulate that situation where sometimes it's a direct attack against your emotions and your feelings. How do you adjust and self-regulate? For example, in positions of authority where you're a manager or boss, if you've ever had to terminate someone or have a critical conversation and they want to spew mistruths, lies, things that are directly pointed towards attack towards your integrity, how do you self-regulate your emotions? How do you maintain composure in challenging situations? Self-regulation prevents impulsive reactions. How many people have had family members, co-workers, bosses, and managers says, you always make these impulsive reactions. You don't think about it, you just do it. You explode. You get all rattled up and then you just do something. Self-regulation prevents being very impulsive. So as a leader, if you are better at self-regulating, what ends up happening, it fosters trust. That situation with my daughter at that time, if I was not good at self-regulating my behavior, if I wasn't good at self-regulating, it could have went crazy. But because I had a good ability to self-regulate, we were able to talk through the situation, come up with some understanding. But here's the kicker. When regulating, it fosters trust in other people. If you are a leader and you can manage your emotions effectively, you can respond to challenges calmly and rationally. That's why you have to work at being more self-regulated. Develop skills so you can regulate your behaviors, your responses, because at the end of the day, it helps build trust. No one trusts someone they cannot predict. No one opens up to a nuclear reactor plant that is going from cold red to cold blue, back to cold red, cold blue. They don't know where you're at in the sequence. Self regulation is critical because it helps build trust. People don't open up to individuals they don't trust. And if you are emotionally not regulated, people will not trust you. If if I'm all over the place, it's very hard for people to follow me because they can't trust that I'm going to make rational, thoughtful, intelligent decisions because I'm not calm, I'm not self-regulated. So how do you do that? One of the ways that you can help with self-regulation is practicing pauses before reacting emotionally in emotionally charged situations, even delaying a decision. Let me get back to you on that situation. Using deep breaths, being mindful, counting to 10. I'm not a counter. I know some people count to 10. I typically say, hey, I'll get back to you, or let me think about that for a moment. When I say think about that for a moment, I'm doing things like breathing, being mindful, whether or not this is a trigger, whether or not I should respond, or whether or not this is something that I ask more questions to even gauge into further understanding. But what are the practices you put in place to ensure that you are self-regulating in response to those things? Focus on the solution rather than dwelling on the problem. So a part of the conversation that I had, using that as an example, I didn't say, I said, well, what can we do to make our communication better? What can I do as your father to make things better? This same process happens in the workplace. They want to rant and rave and have all these issues and concerns. If you self-regulate, the best thing you can do is say, I understand. How can we fix the problem? What are the solutions to the problem? How can we make things better? Focus on the solution rather than dwelling on the problem. Healing happens with solutions, not just a conversation about the problem. Healing happens with solutions. When you're able to be more self-regulated, you're able to come up with better solutions. Next is motivation. Motivation is really the inner drive to pursue goals with energy, persistence, and a sense of purpose, even in the face of obstacles. When it comes to leadership and families, people follow motivation and vision. What are you consistent at doing? What are you passionate about doing? What are you putting your energy towards? Even when things get hard, life happens. Things that we want to happen in our life doesn't always manifest as quickly as we would want them to be. So, how do you maintain to be motivated in the times where things don't look so well? If you think about emotional intelligence, having a sense of motivation, being positive, being persistent, does a whole lot in individuals who are looking to you as leaders, as parents, for answers and solutions. For an example, to follow someone who is not motivated and depressed, it's very hard to follow someone who are not self-aware, not motivated, not persistent, not consistent, all over the place. How are you motivated? What things are motivating you? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? What are you trying to do? And do they see that energy in you as you pursue it? Or are you always lackadaisical of the things that you implement? Do you just gradually do things? Motivation allows for individuals to see purpose driven in you. It allows you to have more purpose. It allows you to keep moving things forward. So, from a leadership perspective, motivation keeps leaders resilient and focused on long-term success versus short-term success. Understand what I'm saying? When you think about leadership, do people see purpose in what you're doing? Or do you crumble when they complain? Let me explain. Years ago, one of the things that I found, I'm very big in visionary leadership. I always see the big picture. But oftentimes in my early stages of leadership, people didn't truly understand what I was pushing towards or what I was passionate about. They saw my passion, my work ethic, and everything I was putting into place. But one of the things that I had to understand along the way, I had to spend a lot of time moving people towards the direction that I wanted them to go. What helped me was the fact that I never gave up on what my long-term process was going to be. How many of us, the first obstacle that we have in our life, we give up early because of the first small sign of people not following what we're doing? Motivation, consistency, and persistence, people tend to follow. Therefore, you need to set clear, meaningful goals that are aligned to your values. What are your goals and how does it line up to your values? Because your goals and your values will determine your long-term plan. With those big goals that you have, me being a visionary leader, what I've had to learn is I had to break those goals into smaller chunks. In those smaller chunks, I was able to give nuggets and pieces along the way to help individuals who I was leading understand the direction I was going. I was really good at giving the big picture, at least to myself, but to the people who were following me, they didn't know. So I got really good at taking that big picture and putting it in phases of where I think things need to go, and then still having that passion and drive to see the long-term goal and moving people along that way. So what are your goals in your personal life, your professional life? We'll talk about it in probably another session when I really dig deep into workforce development. But when you get a job, especially when you move up into management or move up in a company, they'll often ask you this question: where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your long-term goals? Oftentimes, people will answer, I think I just want to work here and maybe be here for 3 or 4 years. That seems like an adequate question, an adequate answer, right? But oftentimes, you've already pigeonholed yourself because you just told an individual that you have no other career aspiration and you're not working towards a bigger picture. If you want to be a manager, learning how to articulate this long-term goal of what you want out of your life is critically important. Even when you choose a job that it may not necessarily be the best job that you've ever wanted and dreamed about. I know that if you're desperate time, you need the money, you got to do what you got to do. But even with that, you still have a goal. If I need to get a job so I can keep the lights on, gas on, bills paid, that is the ultimate goal. But what is the long-term process? Once I get this job, I'm going to go back to school or work on my skill set, but I'm going to apply for another job that will allow me to move up. Every job or step in your life should count towards your goals, purpose, and value. If you don't have it, then you'll realize that you'll spend years in one place and there's no end game because you never thought about an end game. What is the end game? Right? Oftentimes we hear about this is your season. I know this is the 2025 has been a year of seasons, right? It's your season. Do you understand that there's 4 seasons of the year? Never tells you what your season is. And do you even know what season that you're in your life? Are you in a growth season like the spring? Are you in the death season, the winter? A season where there are things in your life that has to go, right? Are you in a fall season where you're making a transition? There's multiple seasons, right? And you need to know in each one what you should be doing or what should happen. Yes, there are seasons in your life where you need to make some decisions. There's seasons where you need to make transitions. There's seasons where you need to be planning things. There's seasons of your life, right, where you're just going to reap all the things that you've done in these multiple seasons. The issue is your goals, values, and being very clear about what it is and where you're at in your life. You need to articulate it so you will know exactly what to do. Last point is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand your feelings of others, seeing situations from their perspective. So, first and foremost, I can't understand you until I'm able to understand me. Empathy allows you to understand and share the feelings of others, seeing the situation from their perspective. How do you do that? Number one, empathy helps build trust and stronger relationships. The way you increase empathy is that you practice active listening. Active listening is giving your full attention, avoiding interruption, and asking clarifying questions. Explain that to me. I don't understand, or give me more information. How do you ask clarifying questions, give full attention, and avoid interrupting? For example, being on your cell phone texting while someone is talking to you about something important and you don't even acknowledge, say, hey, 1 second, I'm going to get whatever. Active listening means you giving their full undivided attention, right? Not doing anything else. Like that conversation with my daughter, I could have had my cell phone. No, it was in another room because I felt like active listening. I'm listening to what you have to say. To nonverbal clues, such as body language and tone of voice. Body language and tone of voice. How many people have people in their workplace that don't understand when it's time for them to leave you alone. They ignore all verbal clues. Empathy allows you to pay attention to nonverbal clues, body language, tone of voice. That is something that all of us need to be aware of and work towards. And showing genuine care and concern for others' well being. I'm really big on servant leadership. I'm really big in showing genuine care and concern for individual, even when we have to depart ways, or even if things are not going to work. I still inside have a genuine care and concern of an individual or for a person. And then last one is social skills. The ability to manage relationships effectively, including communication, teamwork, and conflict resolution. Working on your social skills. How do you handle certain interactions with people? Especially being self-aware. There are people who are introverts and there are people who are extroverts. There are people who have to prepare themselves to interact with people. And there's other individuals who interact too much with people. So how do you manage relationships effectively? Some people don't have any boundaries. Some people have too many boundaries. So one of the things that emotional intelligence shows you, how do you handle social interactions? Do you have focused, clear, concise, respectful communication with people? Do you build rapport that is approachable and engaging? Do you practice conflict resolution by addressing issues directly? If you are more socially aware, what ends up happening is in section 3 of your workbook, you build a leadership legacy. That is what you want. You want to build a legacy in your leadership. You want to have a lasting impact on the lives of individuals who you touch. You want to be remembered not because you just achieved all the goals and accolades. You want to be remembered by what you contribute to individuals' lives. That's the reason why you want to have this social, emotional, or you want to have this highest level of social IQ. Why? Because at the end of the day, people remember you not by all your accolades, they'll remember you about how they felt about you and how you contributed to their lives. Okay. So one of the things I want you to think about is, what is your leadership legacy? What legacy do you want as a leader? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want generations to come, or family members and children of the people that you led, to think about you as their leader? How do you want your children to remember you? How do you want your friends to remember you? How do you want people to remember you? Do they want to remember a person who had low social IQ, a person who didn't care, a person that only self-seek, person that was always um focused more on opportunity than the people they serve? How do you want to be remembered? Think about that and write that in your work. What is your leadership legacy vision statement? How do you want to be remembered? My suggestion is putting things in process every single day that helps you as a leader. How many times do you reflect on your day? How do you work at listening? Is what you're doing right now in your life aligned with your vision for your life? If not, what are you doing to change it? What things are you working at putting in place to make those changes? Even in a small way, how are you passing what you learn in this course to others? What have you done in the last almost a month to help individuals as you learning how to become a more spiritual led leader. How are you helping others becoming a more spiritual led leader? Secondly, how are you celebrating your growth as an individual? If you've gone through the workbooks and you put some things in place in your life, how are you celebrating those things? How are you celebrating some growth? The things that you did the week before last, how have you made some changes in your life, in your family, in your home? Are you celebrating those moments where you're getting it right? Are you celebrating those moments where you've overcome some things that you have been working towards over the last several weeks, several months? Celebrate those things. Celebrate those opportunities where you're growing as an individual. Final reflection. As we close out this series, the ultimate goal is for you to be very intentional in your leadership. Leadership is not a title, it is a journey. Um, It is a grueling process of you becoming the best version of yourself so you have the ability to be the best version in front of people who look to you for leadership, guidance, and sometimes even hope. The way that you get better is that you become very intentional about it. Every day, every week, every month, inspire to be better. Never think that you have arrived because you've earned a title. Leadership is more than that, it's spiritual. You have a responsibility for those people that you lead. And in order to do so, you must give your A game every day to people who depend upon your decisions, depend upon the direction that you take them, because your leadership impacts their family. Leadership transcends generations. It really impacts people. And that's our challenge for those who lead people. Are you working to become better? Thank you. The workbooks that you have downloaded will be there for you to download. Thank you for joining us for the last 4 weeks. Um, I did have a special surprise for you. For those who have been with us the last 4 weeks, this is a part of a company that we created called Avatar Dynamics. It used to be a hustle culture company, but we changed it. We are offering guys a free opportunity to join our community. If you go to community.avadardynamics.com, we have 3 membership prices, but we have a free community where you have access to our daily blogs, our content. If you send us your email and you download one of our workbooks from our website, you'll have access to some of our ongoing blog posts, information to really help you get better. This has been a passion project for us as a family because I felt that there needed to be a merger of helping people really understand leadership, how to engage people, how to make their lives individually better, how they make their family lives better. So we have a free membership. If you go to community.avatar.dynamics, you open up an account. You really want to know what you want to get out of it so that we can guide that. You'll get our daily blog posts via a community. This is about developing a community of people around these topics. The biggest bonus is that when you join the community, you'll get a discount on the spirituality and leadership book that's going to come out next Friday, which goes in a greater detail of all the things that we've covered. Because I couldn't cover it all in an hour, but we want to give a discount on the book that's going to be released next Friday. By joining our community, you'll have access based upon either you pick a free plan, you always will have like discounts to our books and download. But if you get a more paid plan, you'll have access to our resource library that we're building. We have a lot of things coming. We just ask that you be a part of that, invite other people. Our ultimate goal is really to change lives. And next week. Next week, we will start a whole nother series. So hopefully join us at 10:30. I'm actually going to cover a book that I wrote years ago, but I'm going to cover a book called Tikva, which is the Hebrew word for hope. I'm going to go and actually teach the science behind hope. Like, what is hope? How does hope interact with our day to day life? And how do we begin to create those things in our lives based upon this whole concept of hope? If you're riding with me, you'll be here next week. It'll be changing in the series. Thank you for joining us. If you're on Facebook Live, thank you for joining. Please follow us on our website, subscribe, and you'll get updates as we move forward. For those on Zoom, as you registered, please stay on because I'm going to go off live and answer any questions that you may have about what I covered today. So once again, thank you guys. And for those on Facebook, ask any questions in the chat and I'll respond to you via comment. So thank you guys. Thank you for riding with us for these last 4 weeks as we cover spirituality and leadership, and look forward to you join us some of our other sessions. Thank you guys.